Hello, everyone. Hello, dear colleagues. Hello, our attendees of our online international conference devoted to European and Russian heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration market. Very happy to see you all here. We will start in 2 minutes. Just we're waiting for everyone to join our online conference. The online conference will run in English, as was mentioned in your emails. And within the online conference, you may type your questions into special chat, which is situated in Zoom below your screen. And our experts will answer all your questions. After all the reports of all experts, we will have a special questions and answers session and special discussions of hot issues of this industry between our experts. And you will be able to listen to it, of course, and ask your questions within this session as well. The length of our international online conference is 2 hours. So now we are waiting for others to join, and we will start. Yes, and let me introduce myself, of course. My name is Yulia Zovkova. I am the moderator of this online conference, and I am the advertising and PR manager of Aquatherm Moscow exhibition. Aquatherm Moscow is the official organizer of this international exhibition, and our partners are Riva, BDH, BGK, and area associations as well. So we are ready to start. First, we have our introductory speech, a short one. It was presented by the Aquatherm Moscow exhibition director Elena Zelenina and Olga Yegorova. They will present our online conference and our. So, Elena, Olga, you will start.
Yes. Hello.
Hello, Elena.
Hi. Well, shall we start then? Yeah. Hi all. Oh, we are glad to see you here and good to announce that exhibitions restarting, a much needed signal for all industries that rely on trade shows as market and business meeting places. Last 2 weeks, for your information, we held over 5 exhibitions in Crocus Expo, which is the biggest Russian exhibition center. And while the social distancing measures make for a much less crowded experience on the floor, where saw people talking, negotiating, networking, exchanging ideas and best practices, closing deals everywhere. That makes me feel that nothing can replace the magic of face-to-face connections. The topic of our brief presentation today is Aquatherm as a best way to enter the Russian market, HVAC and water technologies market. Why it is the best one? First, because it is about business to business. Aquatherm Moscow annually connects manufacturers and brand representatives from all over the globe with an impressive target audience of 29,000 trade, engineering, design, and installation, construction, property management, and operation companies with strong buying interest from 80 Russian regions. Second, because it is convenient. You don't need to think how to get the reliable partner. Just during 4 days under one roof, you receive the best opportunities to meet your objectives. First, lead generating. Please Find new partners from 18 Russian regions and CIS, which was invited by us organizers. Meeting buyers. You're welcome to use our 25-year experience in growing experts and sales network. Increasing the best awareness. Being a leading show in Russian HVAC and water technology industry, Aquatherm Moscow provides a range of state-of-art and innovative marketing tools, helping the exhibitors to strengthen the image and maintaining the industry to speed up recovery from COVID-19 crisis. And our business program, which gives you a knowledge of the correct way of doing business in Russia and learn actual market trends. What's new in Aquatherm Moscow 2021? First of all, I would like to highlight that this cycle we worked out and implemented our new online service named Aquatherm Click. This is the application that allows you getting the most from the show for your as exhibitor, visitor, or even on-stand staff. What it gives? Business information. That's the important role. Benefit from the breakthrough technology to enrich your business data. Second, smart matchmaking. You can enrich your profile, attract and get the best target audience from our online catalog and buy this service. And lead scanning. You will have an opportunity to collect and download all the leads from the single service. We will send the detailed information to all of you right after this conference. Second initiative that I want to highlight here is a new launch of our ventilation, air conditioning and refrigeration sector named Air Vent. We dedicated a special exposition for this sector on the general exposition of the show. We made a special event pricing those exhibitors. And Air Vent Congress dedicated awards. And we also present our special award for this sector, because we have the general award for Aquatherm Moscow. And this year we do a special award for air conditioning, ventilation, and refrigeration sphere. So you know that we love our show and we do our best you to love it the same way. And together with our partners today, we organize this conference in order to give you some insights of the current situation and discuss the main topic of HVAC market here. We wish you useful time to all of us. And I'm delightful to turn the floor over to the next speaker, Riva President Frank Havorka.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this introduction. I will share my screen. Just one moment. Up. All right, I think all of you can see my screen now. If not, if someone can give me a feedback. Thank you very much for the invitation. So I'm Frank Havorka. I'm the president of RIVA, which is the HVAC European Federation. Our federation was founded in '63, and European mean geographical Europe. We are representing more than 120,000 building service engineers. We are covering 26 countries all around Europe, including Russia, through representation by AVOC. Here you can see all the associations which are members of the federation. And I'm very pleased that we can work together with this 26 federation and association. And as you see, we are not a European, let's say, official body, but we are European since '63, based on cooperation with also countries which are not members of a European community, because we have, as I said, Russia, Turkey, and United Kingdom. We work also with supporters. I think it's important for us as engineers to also have a coordination with a part of industry, and we work with them in order to understand where they are going in terms of industry development. And also for us, it's important to give them a feedback on research and science. We also work internationally with cooperation around the world, like India, also Abrava, which is South America countries, and also we work with other bodies like Indoor Environmental Quality Global Alliance and International Institution of Refrigeration. Our mission is quite clear. We are dedicated to promote science-based practice on heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and to develop the knowledge in this field. What we do at the federation level is based, as you see, in working with the European bodies like European certification body, also with ISO. We work very closely with the European Building Performance Center, which aim to work on dissemination on European norms based on building performance, the new set of norms. I will go a little bit deeper later on. We also work, of course, with our members, with national associations, to work on projects. And the idea there is really to also give this visibility between national members and European activities. I want to emphasize that we organize very often events, and we are participating also with events. And I want here to thank very much the organization of Aquatherm Moscow. I'm very pleased to be here with you today. And we have also every year events, and the next one will be the 14th HVAC World Congress that will take place in Rotterdam in Netherlands in May 2022. And we do hope that we will be in capacity to travel again. You can access on our website all the publications that we publish 6 times a year. It's totally free online, and you can have information about the developments in Europe. We also have publications on dedicated topics. We have no more than 30 guidebooks that you can download, and some of them are free, some others you have to pay the access, and you can get your personal copy. Just to focus on also what the Federation is doing. We worked with a lot of experts, more than 200 experts around Europe, plus the experts around the world, working closely with the World Health Organization, and that linked us to this COVID-19 guidance, because there was a lot of questions about behavior that we should take inside buildings, residential or non-residential, and what should be done with heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So if you are interested, you can download the presentations. We have already this document translated in 13 languages, and we still work on this because COVID-19 unfortunately didn't stop, and we still have to work further with scientists and the medical sector to go further on transmission and how we can adapt the design. It was just to give you a focus that REVA can also be very reactive on present problems. We also have, if you're interested, a REVA application that you can download on your smartphone through app through Apple or Google Play Store. The big advantage is that you can translate all the international language, and it's of course Russian in this document. in this application, sorry. We also have trainings, and if you are interested in, you can see on the website what we do on trainings and projects, and we will have soon in October a training on COVID-19 impact. Well, you see that, oops, I have a problem. Okay, sorry, a little technical problem. So where do we are in the European building sector? So you have here the figures. The point for Europe is quite clear, but first we have to focus on the existing stock, because clearly we see that 75% of the buildings in 2050 are already built. So the point for us is really to work deeply on how to adapt and retrofit the existing stock. In that information, we already have these targets that was settled last year. And you see here that the European Commission in the last weeks have settled a new target on greenhouse gas emission reduction to minus 55% by 2030, which is quite a big step ahead. You also heard about China, who wants to settle also new targets. So it's clearly the topic. But when we talk about greenhouse gas emission, I took here the one in United Kingdom. I think it's important to have in mind what we are talking about if we speak about greenhouse gas emission. So you have this information from the UK impact. So you see that they have a global impact yearly of 831 million tons of CO2 equivalent. And then we have to divide what is embedded where. So you see that we have 48 million tons of greenhouse gas linked to the embedded carbon in new construction, 138 million tons generating by operational buildings. So it's heating, cooling, ventilation, electricity for lighting, and so on. But we also have, which is very important, 44 million tons of greenhouse gas generated through what is used inside the building. So you see, it's not a small amount. It's very important one. And also you have the transport, which has an impact, because when you have a building somewhere, you have to think about how you come and go back home from the office building. So it's quite important to have that picture in mind. But when we think about greenhouse gas, it's not only the 138 million tons of energy used by the building, but it's also what is embedded in the construction or renovation, and what is embedded into the use of buildings. So the challenge for Europe is very important. I will not go deeply on that. We are not on the right path. We are increasing our energy consumption, and we see here that we clearly have to follow this link to go to achieve the 6% reduction every year. It's a big challenge to realize. What I want to insist in buildings, that we will now work on nearly zero energy building, especially for new building first, but the idea is to copy that in retrofit. So the idea is to have these nearly zero energy buildings as a future-proof approach. And the retrofit policy will be based on cost optimality, because it's very important for everyone to have in mind that we have to set a path and targets that needs to be cost optimal. It means that we are not going to invest any money without thinking about the return, and invest the money at the right time according to the existing technology on the market. Of course, it's important to link these targets with policy and financing. So we expect to have a new EPBD, a new Energy Building Performance Directive soon. And everything is based on European standards. So you have now a set of 53 standards that are based on a systemic approach. And if you are interested in, you can download information on the EPB Center if you are interested to go further and to have more information about this standardization. The idea behind the standardization is to go from product certification to system certification and to system approach in order to have a visualization of the the real performance of buildings in terms of energy and carbon. This is very important, and the European Commission really insisted on how to have better data, to have energy performance certificates that are more reliable, and that's why the European Commission settled a building observatory. You have the address that you can download in order to really work on data access and data reliability. It's very important to have this transparency, because if otherwise we can't compare between countries, between buildings, and that's why we need to have the level of quality of data that we are going for. So we need really to cooperate, and this is the aim of REVA for that, where we think that cooperation really can change a lot, and also at the level of buildings, of portfolio, where we need to translate the technical information into financial decision. This is clearly something that doesn't happen so often, and this is where the translation is really important. So as I said, we have to take in account all the building's impacts in terms of energy. These figures are in primary energy. It means not the metered energy, but primary energy from the power plants. And if I try to figure out what it can mean if you take 50 years of standard life of a building, for example, so you can see that we can have every year information about the consumption in energy and impact in greenhouse gas emission. And it's quite important to have this vision in dynamic. The vision of building should be a movie where we can look every year what was planned and what is really happening on your building. We can also manage the uncertainty linked to calculation when you design the building. We can work with standards on measurement definition, on how we measure the information. And as I said, it has to be dynamic. It's also linked to indoor environmental quality. Inside the European norms I mentioned, we have indoor climate class definition for calculation of performance, because of course you can easily understand that the performance, energy performance of building is definitively linked to the energy consumption. And as I said, all of that needs to be translated. It needs to be translated from technical language that we are used to speak with performance indicators, energy consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, indoor environmental quality, into financial models where we speak finance, we speak about risk, we speak about reliability, we speak about incomes, and we speak about cash flow. So how do we translate that? And this is really the challenge, to manage the uncertainty that we have inside our systems of indicators on buildings, and how we can transfer properly reliable data for financial decision makers. So we have really to think about building information modeling, to think about the data flow, and this is clearly where we know you have to use the tools in order to translate all the information we have on components, systems, environmental indicators, the cost of building running operation, and how we can transfer that into this risk approach. Because it's quite important to understand that for investors, it's very important to translate this technical quality into risk mitigation. What can be the risk of obsolescence for inefficient building? What can be the risk of my investment for this kind of technical performance of building? So to conclude, clearly we have to think about building long-term value assessment. Of course, we still have to think about a location of a building with connectivity, local service, security, attractivity, architecture, quality of the architecture and design. But we have to keep in mind that more and more we will integrate into the value of a building the indoor environmental quality, its energy performance, the lifespan of building systems and building overall, flexibility and mutability, so how we can easily have different uses. Thank you very much for your attention. I think we have a presentation.
Thank you so much, Frank, for your nice presentation. It was really interesting for us to see it. Yes, and you touched upon very important questions concerning the energy efficiency. Yes, it was really great, especially while in building environment, because this topic is very hot one, especially in Europe. So it was extremely interesting for us. And I hope that you will be ready to share your presentation after this online conference with our attendees. Yes, because they would like to, yeah, they would like to look it through one more time again. And now, just we are moving on. Let me introduce you our Russian expert of the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning market. He is Georgy Litvinchuk. He is the founder and director of the company Litvinchuk Marketing, and he will present you some important topics, some important figures, facts about the Russian ventilation and air conditioning market and heating as well. And especially we will focus on post-pandemic situation on the Russian market. I will translate Mr. George Litvinchuk to you into English. So we may start now.
Добрый день. Хотел бы сначала задать вопрос. Я так понимаю, большинству из тех, кто здесь присутствует, больше интересен рынок промышленных систем кондиционирования и вентиляции, нежели бытовых систем.
As I understand that most of attendees who are here are more interested in industrial equipment and the situation connected with the industrial equipment on the Russian market. Am I right? Could you please type your answer in the chat? You may write plus if you are more interested in industrial equipment on the Russian market. Or minus if you would like to listen to the domestic and industrial equipment as well. Types.
Собственно, все. Я вижу, что мнения разделились, да, то есть большинство все-таки индустриальное, поэтому я чуть-чуть расскажу про бытовые системы кондиционирования, а после перейду к индустриальным.
As we see, your opinions are different, so we will touch upon both topics, domestic equipment and industrial as well. We will start with industrial.
То, что касается бытовых систем кондиционирования, как это не покажется странным, в этом году в России был прирост продаж.
Speaking about the domestic equipment for ventilation and air conditioning, we marked an increase in Russia in sales. It's very interesting and unexpected.
Бытовых систем лучше room air condition. Если брать room air condition, в этом году был рост 10-12%.
If we speak about room and air conditioning, the increase was 10 or 12% this year.
При этом комнатные кондиционеры, те, которые меньше 5 киловатт, выросли сразу на 16%.
And room air conditioners with less than 15 kilobytes rose by 15% at once.
Почему положительная динамика на фоне пандемии?
The positive dynamic is on the phone of the pandemic can be explained by the fact that
причина в том, что на динамику российского рынка кондиционеров самое большое влияние оказывает замена оборудования, которое было установлено 10, 15, 20 лет назад.
The fact that the dynamic of the Russian air conditioning and ventilation market is extremely influenced by the need of replacement of the old equipment which was installed a few years ago with new ones.
В начале-середине 2000-х очень многие рынки росли быстрыми темпами, притом росли с нуля. То есть раньше их просто не было.
At the beginning or in the middle of 2000 years, a few markets began to rise, but a few years ago it wasn't true.
И сейчас темпы замены, количество замененных аппаратов, ну, допустим, это характерно для бытовых кондиционеров, то же самое относится, например, к настенным котлам, то же самое относится к радиаторам водяного отопления. То есть количество замен на ряде рынков увеличивается на 20–15% в год.
And now the number of replacement of old equipment with new ones is increasing by 15 or 12% every year. It is also connected with the room air conditioning and of course with heating wall systems and etc.
Лучше сказать, наверное, алюминиевые биметаллические радиаторы, стальные
And of
панельные
course
радиаторы.
it touches aluminium, steel radiators,
Volatile boiler,
Altain boiler radiators.
не радиатор, volatile boiler, это
Volatile
настенный
boilers.
котел. Конкретно. То есть на многих из этих рынках именно процесс замены оборудования, который набирает обороты, не позволяет этим рынкам упасть даже при неблагоприятных условиях, которые, в общем-то, обеспечивают конкуренцию.
The need to replace old equipment with new one led this market to grow and not fall, even under the influence of the pandemic terms.
При этом, если брать оборудование, которое потребляется малым бизнесом, ну, это кафе, рестораны, магазины, то здесь, конечно, мы увидели снижение спроса.
But if we speak about the equipment which is used by small business companies like restaurants, shops, trade centers, and etc., now we see a decrease in consumption of such equipment. Definitely.
Ну, так вот, Package Air Condition, как раз сегмент, который потребляется малым бизнесом, здесь падение было порядка 18–20%.
18% decrease was marked in the sphere of package air conditioning.
Плюс, опять-таки, на рынок оказало влияние то, что ряд предприятий не работал во время пандемии.
A very strong influence on the market was caused by the fact that a lot of manufacturing companies have to stop their producing of equipment due to the pandemic.
Из-за этого на ряде европейских заводов срок изготовления, например, вент-установки или чиллера существенно увеличился.
It led to the increase of time for producing equipment in a few international manufacturing enterprises.
Из-за этого получилось очередное увеличение доли российской продукции на рынке.
And it led to the increase of the Russian equipment on the ventilation and air conditioning market as well.
Ну, к примеру, если брать вентиляционные установки, прирост российского производства в этом году будет порядка 15–20%. Примерно настолько же упал.
For example, if we speak about the ventilation systems on the Russian market produced by the Russian manufacturers, we mark 80% increase this year.
Ну, то есть, если по результатам прошлого года отечественные вент-установки занимали около 80% рынка в количественном отношении, где-то около 70% с небольшим денежным, то по результатам этого года денежная доля российских вент-установок достигла 80%.
For example, if we speak about the last year, we have 80% of the Russian equipment for ventilation and air conditioning on the Russian market, and 70% of such equipment in monetary terms. But if we speak about the number of such equipment manufactured by the Russian companies, now we see an increase, and it reached 18% in monetary terms now.
Если брать продажи вент-оборудования в такие сложные месяцы, как март и апрель, как раз разгар пандемии, то производство российского вент-оборудования выросло примерно на 35% в сравнении с прошлым годом.
If we speak about such difficult months like March and April, you know that there was a pandemic terms and quarantine regime, but the production of air conditioning and ventilation systems has increased and accounted to 35% in these months.
Почему получилась такая динамика? Тут две причины. Первая, ряд фабрик в Европе не работал и просто не мог поставить оборудование. И вторая причина – это очень крупные государственные заказы на инфекционные больницы.
Such positive dynamic was reached thanks to the length of production of such equipment from the European companies due to the coronavirus. And of course, it is connected with the increase in demand from the state organizations because such equipment was extremely necessary for hospitals and other organizations to cope with coronavirus.
Ну, например, крупнейший российский производитель ЕЗа 1,5 месяца был загружен исключительно заказами для инфекционных больниц.
For example, one of the leading Russian manufacturers of ventilation and air conditioning equipment, which is called VAC, was manufacturing this type of equipment 1 month and a half, especially for the state hospitals and organizations to provide it with the necessary equipment to prevent spread of coronavirus.
В результате российский рынок вентиляционных установок Air Handling Units в этом году вырастет примерно процентов на 7%.
As a result, the market of ventilation systems, air handling units, will increase by 7 or 8% this year.
При этом совершенно другая динамика на рынке чиллеров.
But we see extremely another dynamic on the market of chillers in Russia.
Если брать импорт чиллеров, то за первые 6 месяцев падение импорта примерно около 40%.
If we speak about the chillers market in Russia, we noticed a decrease of production and sales of 8%
Это именно импорт, не продажи.
of import equipment.
Дело в том, что российские производители чиллеров по результатам прошлого года контролировали всего около 12-15% рынка.
It is due to the fact that last year the Russian manufacturers of chillers controlled only 15% of the Russian market.
В отличие от рынка вент-установок, они не могли полностью компенсировать падение.
But if we compare them with the Russian ventilation systems,
Они не могли, если по вент-установкам они могли компенсировать падение импорта, то по чиллерам
they could not compensate the decrease of import in chillers, but they could do it in ventilation systems.
В июле и августе импорт чиллеров вышел примерно на уровень прошлого года, но по результатам года все равно получается достаточно большой прорыв.
The market of chillers reached the same dynamic as in previous years in June and July, but we still mark a decrease in this segment.
Ну, то есть мы видим здесь разные направления динамики. Рынок VRF-систем при этом остается примерно на прошлогоднем уровне.
So we see a different dynamic in different segments of these markets in Russia. For example, the market of VRF systems is at the same dynamic as it was last year.
Почему такая разная динамика по VRF и чиллерам? Отчасти, ну, опять-таки, только отчасти это объясняется тем, что по VRF-системам началась достаточно активная замена, а по чиллерам зачастую предпочитают делать серьезный ремонт чиллера между ними целиком.
This difference between these segments and the dynamic can be explained by the fact that if we speak about chillers, we see that there is a tendency to change them with new ones. But if we speak about the
VRF-системы
but if we speak about
VRF точнее меняют, а чиллера зачастую ремонтируют.
But if we speak about VRF system segment, we see that there is a tendency to repair the old equipment, but not to replace it with new one.
Почему чиллера зачастую ремонтируют? В России в последнее время чиллера мультистру, то есть с большим количеством спиральных компрессоров, постепенно вытесняют винтовые машины.
Chillers multi-screw in Russia is replacing the wind machines step by step.
Почему, собственно, чиллера мультискру реже меняют? Ну, потому что если у вас 12 компрессоров в чиллере или 8, и у вас поломались один или два, человек постепенно начинает менять эти компрессора. Если же на винтовом чиллере, где у вас один или два компрессора сломались, ну, в этом случае ремонт сопоставим с покупкой нового чиллера. А в случае мультискролла гораздо дешевле ремонтировать.
So if we're speaking about chillers, it is more convenient it is possible to replace some details in it. For example, you may change compressors. If you have 8 to 12, you may change them with new ones or buy new. And if we speak about the reason for not replacing with new ones, but repairing will be cheaper than replacing.
Плюс еще один момент, который затрудняет зачастую замену чиллера. Чиллер может стоять, например, на кровле какого-нибудь 12-этажного здания, которое находится в густо заселенном районе, и чтобы просто поменять этот чиллер, нужно ставить башенный кран.
It's difficult to replace a chiller with new one, especially when it is situated at the skyscraper. For example, when the house has 12 floors, and it is situated on the 12th floor, and you have to change it with difficulties. You have difficulties when changing it with new one, and it's easier to repair the old one, which is already installed.
Все это влияет на рынок чиллеров отрицательным образом, то есть идет много ремонтов, но не так много замен, как нам хотелось бы, честно говоря.
All this influences this market in negative results, and we mark that there is a tendency to repair chillers, but not to replace them with new ones.
О том, что процесс ремонтов достаточно активно идет, очень хорошо видно по динамике холодогенов на российском рынке.
The dynamic of refrigerants also confirms that we have positive dynamic in repairing the old equipment of chillers.
Если брать основные холодагенты, то есть R134A, R404A, R410, R407, то суммарно по ним потребление за последние 4 года выросло в 2 раза.
If we speak about the most popular refrigerants like R104, R100,
404,
404,
407,
R400C,
410,
410A,
134,
134A,
507C
507C
и 407.
and 407C, we see that there is
Двукратный рост.
There is a double growth in consumption of these refrigerants.
Не на рынке систем кондиционирования, не на рынке промышленного холода, разумеется, подобного роста не было. То есть это рынки последние 4 года показывают где-то очень близкие по продажам.
The market of refrigeration and industrial air conditioning don't show any increase in this year, and they say the same results as it was a few years ago. And industrial refrigeration market also contains the same dynamic as it was a few years ago.
Тут появился вопрос про новые холодагенты. На российском рынке доля, скажем так, ну, скорее всего, здесь вопрос про R32. Доля сплит-систем на R32 это где-то 5-6-7%, не более того. Год назад это было менее.
Answering the questions which we see in chat, speaking about the most popular refrigerant, R32, we may say that the Russian market has around 6 or 8% of split systems with R32 refrigerant, not so much.
На самом деле, для того, чтобы поднимать, как будут внедряться новые подагенты в России, достаточно вспомнить переход с R22 на R410.
Frankly speaking, to understand how the circumstances will be developed when we will use new refrigerants on the Russian market, we should remember the process of replacement of R22 with R32.
Этот переход произошел фактически принудительно, то есть просто производители перестали выпускать технику на R22, и в России были вынуждены переходить на новый подагент.
This shift was in demand because the Russian manufacturers stopped manufacturing this refrigerant, and the Russian markets had to use this new refrigerant.
Ну, то есть с момента, когда 95% рынка занимал R22, до момента, когда 95% рынка стал занимать R410, прошло всего 2 года.
It took only 2 years to shift from R404 refrigerant to R32 refrigerant. So it's quite fast.
Ну, то есть вот это вот увеличение доли R32 с 1 до 6%, он связан исключительно с тем, что поставки практически всех японских кондиционеров пошли на R32.
And the decrease, which we marked at this time, from 1 to 6% of share of split systems with R32 on the Russian market, it is strictly connected with the fact that the Japanese companies began to supply the Russian market with the equipment with the R32 refrigerant.
Ну, то есть на самом деле по доброй воле никто на новые подагенты в России переходить не будет, то есть это во многом связано с консерватизмом инсталлеров.
So the shift to new refrigerants is mainly caused by the conservatism of installers, and if there are any circumstances which make us do it, we should do it.
Что?
Да, что еще?
Так, ну я вижу, тут многие спрашивали про отопление. Я так понимаю,
We see that a lot of questions connected with water heating and heating as well.
Ну, давайте начнем с рынка котлов. Как я уже сказал в самом начале,
Let's talk about the boilers market.
рынок настенных котлов, boiler, в этом году вырастет примерно на 3-4%.
We expected an increase of 3 or 4% in the wall-tied boilers market in Russia.
Этот рост вызван исключительно быстрыми темпами замены старых котлов.
This growth is mainly caused and connected with the replacement of old boilers with new ones.
Срок службы настенного котла это где-то от 7 до 15 лет. Причем чем древнее котел, тем дольше он служит.
The life length of the wall-tied boiler is around 7 or 15 years now, and we should say that the more older the boiler is, the more longer it works, really.
Ну, вот как раз 12-15 лет назад рынок настенных котлов рос темпами по 20-30%.
For example, the wall-tied boilers market rose by 20 or 30% 12 years ago.
Как раз такими же темпами сейчас растет замена этих самых котлов.
And now we see the same dynamic when they're connected with the replacement of these wall-tied boilers.
именно это и дает такую динамику рынка.
And it gives such a dynamic to the market.
То есть продажи в новые дома снижаются, замена увеличивается, и в сумме мы получаем небольшой прирост.
We see a tendency to decrease sales for new houses, but with a strict demand of boilers to replace the old ones.
При этом, если мы возьмем напольные котлы, то примерно получим где-то примерно 12% падения.
But if we speak about floor boilers, we mark 12% decrease in consumption of such boilers.
Но то, что касается динамики напольных котлов, в том числе котлов большой мощности, здесь есть одна особенность рынка. Примерно где-то с 1994 до 2005 года в России замена старых котлов шла очень низкими темпами. То есть в бюджете просто не было денег на то, чтобы реконструировать котельную. Поэтому где-то с 2005 года по 2012 год у нас были сумасшедшие темпы замены промышленных котлов.
If we speak about the industrial market of boilers, we may say that within 1999 till 2005, there were no money from the state to replace the old equipment with new ones. But now from 2005, we see an increase in replacing of the old equipment with new ones in this sector, industrial.
Поэтому в России сейчас очень свежий парк промышленных котлов.
So in Russia, there is a very fresh park of industrial boilers.
И, соответственно, динамика рынка, которая идет в минус, она связана с тем, что при нынешней экономической ситуации государство имеет возможность немножко, скажем так, попридержать замену старых котлов.
And nowadays, the state has an opportunity to decrease the number of replacements of old boilers with new ones.
Если мы перейдем, так скажем, этот вопрос будет про конденсационных котлах.
If we will speak about condensing boilers,
в России доля condensing boilers очень маленькая. И серьезного влияния на рынок они пока не оказывают.
The share of condensing boilers is extremely little in Russia, and a big influence on the market they don't have now.
Почему такая маленькая доля? Дело просто в том, что в России топливо и вообще энергия традиционно стоит гораздо дешевле, чем в Европе. И та экономия, которая обеспечивает конденсационный котел, она не окупает разницу в цене между конденсационным котлом и традиционным.
It is connected with the fact that oil and energy don't cost a lot in Russia, and the difference between condensing boiler and the usual traditional one is not so much, and it doesn't cover it by any extra costs.
При этом государство никак не субсидирует покупку конденсационных котлов, в отличие от предыдущих.
And we should say that the Russian government doesn't stimulate or subsidize the purchasing of such boilers. But if we compare with the European government, they do it.
Если переходить к другому крупному рынку, это радиаторы водяного отопления, то здесь мы наблюдаем очень активное замещение импортной продукции в российский рынок.
If we will speak about the water radiators market, here we see a very big dynamic to replace the import analogous with the Russian ones nowadays.
Ну, то есть, например, в этом году импорт алюминиевых и биметаллических радиаторов в Россию упал на 20-25%.
For example, the import of aluminum and biometallic radiators fell down up to 22%.
При этом российское производство выросло где-то на 15-20%.
But the Russian manufacturing has increased by 15-20%.
И в настоящий момент возможности российских заводов позволяют обеспечить примерно около 70-80%.
And nowadays, the possibilities of the Russian manufacturers and enterprises let us to compensate this by 15 or 20%.
Возможности заводов позволяют, скажем так, обеспечить 80% потребностей в радиаторах.
And the possibility of production of the Russian manufacturing let us cover around
позволяют обеспечить 80% всех потребностей.
Cover around 80% of all needs of the Russian buyers.
Ну, то есть заводы загружены где-то процентов на 60.
So our Russian factories are working with around 60 or 70% of all needs of the Russian buyers.
Если же брать наиболее быстрорастущий сегмент, это стальные панельные радиаторы, то тут возможности тех заводов, которые уже построены в России, полностью покрывают потребность. И, скажем так, заводы в среднем загружены на 30-40%.
If we will talk about the most developing and rising market of steel panel radiators, so here we see that Russian manufacturers and producers completely cover all needs of the Russian buyers, and they're working with around 80-90% of needs of the Russian customers. So we would like to conclude our presentation now, and we will continue a little bit later after all our speakers again. We see all your questions and we will answer them in extra question and answer sessions and also in chat again. So we are moving on, and now Mr. Andres Luki would like to present his presentation. Mr. Andres Luki.
Yes, hello.
Today's president, I'm sure that everyone knows you.
Yeah, thank you very much. May I start? Okay.
Yes, sure. Just for a moment, I will screen and share your presentation.
Yes, please. Okay. Very good. Thanks. Despasiva.
Yeah, you may start for sure.
Okay. Thank you very much. First of all, best greetings to our friends from Aquatherm. I think it's an excellent idea to organize this web seminary, and I'm happy to participate in it because we are backing Aquatherm since a long time, and we are also interested that Aquatherm continues healthy, although we have Corona and COVID, but we believe that Aquatherm will take place. It would at least be our wish. To my person, I'm the Director General of the Federation of German Heating Industry. And please go over to the next chart. Would you go to chart number 1, please? Okay, doesn't work. Anyhow, the organization organizes 105 companies. Among them are very big ones like Bosch, Siemens, Viessmann, very well known in Russia, but also company Weiland. They produce heating systems like boilers up to 40 megawatt of performance. They also produce condensing boilers, heat pumps, and all components which you need for the installation of an efficient modern heating system. Besides that, the companies also produce systems which use renewable energies, like, for example, solar thermal system, photovoltaic systems, and so forth. Our turnover was almost 16 billion euros last year worldwide. Part of it also in the Russian Federation. We employ 76,000 people in our industry, half of it in Germany, half of it outside of Germany. And very important is the big amount of research and development, 700 million euros last year, which is extraordinary and shows that we are a very innovative industry. Within Europe, the German heating industry represents 60% of the turnover. My speech will be on technical solutions, which we offer, for example, for solving the climatic problems coming up in Europe, but also worldwide. And first of all, let's speak briefly about the goals of the European Union. And please go to the next chart. These goals derive from the Climate Agreement of Paris 2015, where 197 countries agreed, among them, by the way, Russia, on global climate protection agreement. Please, next chart. This agreement entered into force in the year 2016. 55 states that emit at least 55% of the global greenhouse gases ratified the agreement. The agreement has three objectives: limiting global warming to significantly below 2 Celsius compared to pre-industrial limit, which was 1.5 Celsius. No further pollution of the atmosphere by greenhouse gases in the second half, and helping poor countries to deal with the damage caused by climate change. The next step for the European Commission was that they said in 2020 we would, let's say, get to a higher goal for the reduction of green gas emissions. Beforehand, we had the goal to reduce CO2 by 40%, and since 2020, we are talking about 55%. So that's very, very, very ambitious. And since heating is more or less 1/3 of the energy consumption of the European Union, we are considered the most important and the biggest energy consumption sector, where you have also the highest CO2 reduction potentials, more than in industry, more than in traffic. Please, next chart. Yes, thank you very much. The new Commission took over in 2019 with the chairman of the commission, Mrs. van der Leyen. She was formerly defense minister of Germany. And you see her in the bigger picture. Mrs. van der Leyen is from the Christian Democrat Party. And below you have the 26 commissioners. And among them, a very important one is Mrs. Simpson. She is responsible for energy, the DG Energy. DG Energy is concerned with energy efficiency and also with the increase of renewable energies in the energy mix of Europe. Please go ahead. Next chart. Okay, please, next chart. Yes, thank you very much. This new commission, under the leadership of Mrs. van der Leyen, published the so-called Green Deal at the beginning of 2020. And one point is to achieve climate neutrality until the year 2050. Until the year 2030, reduce CO2 emissions by 55%. And finally, they would like to have a zero pollution Europe. Extremely ambitious, especially for our sector of buildings and the sector of heating, because it means for us that we have to reduce our emissions of buildings by more than 50% until the year 2030, which would be in they would be in 10 years. And once again, not easy to achieve. Please go ahead to the next chart. What you see here is the composition of the heating systems in the European Union. We have 125 million boilers installed. Most of these boilers run on gas, about 80% running on gas. Much of this gas comes from the Russian Federation. Russia is the biggest export nation for gas to Europe. And that's via the so-called Nord Stream 1 pipeline and other pipelines in Southern Europe, going, for example, through Ukraine and through Eastern European countries like Bulgaria, and ending up in the European Union, transporting Russian gas, mostly Russian gas, also some coming from other countries. Anyhow, if you want to achieve the CO2 reduction goals, then you must make sure that the old boilers in the European stock have to be replaced as fast as possible, because the efficiency of an old boiler is much lower than the efficiency of, for example, a condensing boiler. Our system in Germany is a labeling system. And if you have, for example, a condensing boiler, it would be an A boiler, which has an efficiency of 95%. So almost no losses. But still, what you see in red here, now I don't see anything anymore. Können Sie mal kommen? I don't know whether it's whether I'm still on. Können Sie noch was sehen, Frau Kaiser? Ja, kann man was sehen. Aber meine Kamera ist aus. Okay, sorry, I go ahead. What you see here is once again the red part of these boilers are not A boilers, not condensing boilers, and must be replaced in order to achieve the goals. Next chart, please. Okay, thank you very much. Next chart, please. Thank you. That's the market share condensing technology in Europe 2018. You can see that this technology is dominant already. About 10 years ago, for example, in France, we didn't have any condensing boilers, and not in Spain. And in Italy, it was all standard boilers, inefficient boilers, and nowadays condensing is taking over. What is the principle of condensing? It uses the latent heat in the steam. So the temperature of the exhaust is only 60 Celsius instead of 200 Celsius in the case of a conventional boiler. In my opinion, it will be the future technology also in the Russian Federation, because Russia is aiming at decreasing CO2 emissions, increasing efficiency, and by that having more gas available, for example, for exports. So efficiency, we are condensing boilers is, from our point of view, a big topic. And we are also in contact with the Russian government. They are saying and telling us, yes, would be good to have condensing technology also in the Russian Federation. By the way, China is also changing from conventional gas technology to condensing because they know the big advantages of this high efficient technology. Please go ahead. Next chart. Next chart, please. Okay, what you see here is another technical solution taking place strongly in Europe, especially in these countries, and that's the so-called heat pump. There are at least two technologies available: air-to-water heat pumps using the renewable energy in the normal air, using the difference of temperatures here. The other one is the brine water heat pump, which has, let's say, which will be digged in the ground and uses the energy in the ground, for example, 90 meters deep. The heat pump is running on electricity, but it incorporates more or less 4 parts of renewable energy for 1 part of the electrical energy using for the compressor. So the heat pump is also, let's say, has been developed in Scandinavia, in Germany, and we have the market leaders for heat pumps in our organization. It is considered a renewable energy technology and has also a short market now in a small market now in the Russian Federation, steadily growing because it is also one way to heat highly efficient, low CO2 emissions and using renewable energies. The market increases strongly in the last year, for example, around 20%. This year, we expect a growth rate of 30%, and it is also already almost 14% of the market in Germany, at least expected in 2020. Last year, it was 10%. So this is a dynamic process, and we are glad that the government, the German government, is fostering this development with incentives. Please, next chart. That's another technical solution which is becoming more and more important in Western Europe. It is the interconnectivity of all energetic relevant components in a building. We have a guidance, we call it energy management systems, which is in the center, what you can see there. The energy management system is artificial intelligence in the building, which is responsible for an optimum of flow of electricity produced via PV, photovoltaic, to, for example, the users, and the users are a heat pump, for example. It can also be an electrical car being charged at the home with the help of a big electrical stationary battery. We believe that these approaches, these technologies, which are developed by our companies, become more and more important. It's a partially autark system, so you're not so much dependent on the grid. And it is very good for the grid because within the grid, we do not need as much electrical energy. So this is almost 60–80% autarky, and this, in our opinion, is certainly the future. The last chart, please. Okay, the next technology is really a new one, currently emerging in Germany, but also other European countries. It's also very strong in Japan, and has also a beginning market also in China. And that's the fuel cell technology. Here we use natural gas, and the natural gas, it's H4, chemically speaking, is being transformed in H2, which is used then in the fuel cell, which is a reversed electrolytical process. And in the electrical process, we are producing electricity on the one hand with H2, hydrogen, and we also produce heat. So we have a combined system without engine. Without engine, it's a chemical and physical process for using originally natural gas, transforming that into H2 hydrogen, and then you have electricity in the home and you have heat in the home. This system produces more or less 750 watt electricity and 750 watt heat. And that's not much, but it's good enough for, let's say, feeding the system, the electrical system of a family home. About 80% of the electricity being consumed comes from the fuel cell. And the rest of the heat, which in cold days must be a much higher performance than 750 watt, is being delivered by a backup condensing boiler. The market is becoming stronger and stronger. And now we have a last chart. I forgot, please go ahead, next chart. The future of hydrogen. This is being shown in the case of Germany. Hydrogen is being produced, green hydrogen, with electrolytical process and cracking water into hydrogen. And this process, if we have electricity from wind and photovoltaic available, would be CO2 neutral. So it's a CO2 neutral gaseous fuel for our fuel cells and also for our condensing boilers. There are also projects in Russia, not only green hydrogen, but also blue hydrogen. And I'm pretty sure that the future of gaseous exports from Russia will not be only natural gas, but also hydrogen being mixed into this gas, being transported via the grid, for example, North Stream 1. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for your attention. It was a short overview on the technological solutions for achieving the ambitious climatic goals Thanks a lot. I'm open for questions.
Dear Mr. Andreas Luque, thank you so much for your presentation. It was really impressive, and especially concerning your last slide, it's about the future. It's kind of prospects for the development of this sector. Yeah, and we see some questions. For example, they are asking us that you've said there are no incentives for efficient boilers. Are there any incentives for efficient air conditioning, ventilation, and refrigeration product systems?
The air conditioning and ventilation world is not exactly my world, but I can tell you one thing. Because of Corona and the COVID problem, the German government, federal government, has come up with an incentive for big ventilation systems which exchange the air of halls rapidly. This is new, but Mr. Händel is going to follow me. He is really the expert on air conditioning, and he also knows about the incentives. So I would give the question rather to Mr. Händel.
That's great. Thank you so much. So we are waiting for other questions, and within the question and answer session at the end of our online conference, we will discuss them as well. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks a lot.
We are moving to your colleague. You've already introduced him a little. This is Mr. Klaus Händel. Mr. Klaus, yes, he is the technical consultant of VGK Association, and also he is technical secretary of the European Ventilation Industry Association. And he will speak about the EU regulation towards a sustainable building technology for ventilation. I think it's one of the hottest topics in Europe connected with the ventilation and air conditioning sector. So, Mr. Klaus, you may speak. You may start.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you see me? I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much. I'm proud to be invited here for this seminar and speaking for Fachverband Gebäudeklima, which is a German association having 300 members on ventilation and air conditioning from industries and also from scientific work, and also in parallel speaking for EVIA, the European Ventilation Industry Association, which is, let's say, our link to Europe. And because Europe regulation is more and more influencing our day-to-day work. And I would like to give you an example of our day-to-day work, how we try to follow up regulation, how we try to influence regulation, and how we want to try to bring regulation to a, let me say, a good solution. First of all, I would say I will answer the questions later on, what has been rising up on the funding projects. First of all, I would say it's hard not to meet in these times, but to be honest, speaking for ventilation is part of the solution. I would say what we must expect for the future building technologies, because in well-ventilated buildings, good indoor environment quality buildings, I would say COVID-19 would not be high risk. It can be, ventilation is part of the solution, how we have to develop our future buildings. So I will give you some examples of our day-to-day work, how it's going and how it's working. I will not follow up this very much because Frank and Andreas already showed the targets of the Commission and how we meet them. I just want to say 2 words. 70% of our technical building system are inefficient and cost-effective solutions are available. That's the fact. First of all, Frank showed also a little bit the impact of our regulation. I will focus, let's say, on 3, partly on 4 parts of Europe regulation. Frank has told some things about Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, how we operate on that, and is always a link to member states and the region. And the direct regulation is not always directly valid in all the states and all the regions. Some of the European legislations allow implementation on member states or even implementation on regions. So we see for EPBD that, in example, in Germany, there are national laws and supplements are possible, and the regions are responsible for the enforcements. For renewable energy sources, it's even worse. We have supplements from member states possible, and we have also supplements from regions possible. That leads to the situation where renewable energies are totally different defined in member states, and even in German regions, there is no uniform, let me say, approach how we deal with renewable energy sources. The only regulation which has a clear aspect on the common market is the energy-related products, eco-design, which is clearly a domain for the European legislation, and I would say construction regulation. Some of our products have also follow construction regulation. Then we have also a dual use, because also in Germany, the regions can reglement the use of products placed, let me say, regularly on the market, and they can also give additional limitation on the use. So it is a complex world. Europe is trying to select some new things and is trying to develop some new things. And if we go down here, we see the domain of the European Commission, starting with regulation on our products, meaning fans, ventilation, air conditioning, also including boilers. We see a highly dynamic in improvements and having stronger requirements. And we see a slower way on national levels, because all this need implementation in member states, and this might lead to a different, let me say, slightly different view. We have to consider that comparability, reporting and targets seem to be or should be somehow comparable. And this is exactly the topic what Frank has shown us, that the Commission and also REVA is working on a more or less harmonized approach or view how we consider our buildings. First of all, I'm speaking for the industry. Is regulation needed? We are producing good products, which are mainly cost-effective products. And we can guess that if products are good, cost-effective, and approved on the market, they will be placed on the market automatically. But what we see, it's not always the case, especially not in buildings. We have here heat recovery, the use of heat recovery. That means before 2006, only 30% of our air handling units have implemented a heat recovery system. Only starting with requirements, recommendations, and minimum requirements, we see now today it's up to 80% of the new placed on the market air handling units have a heat recovery system. And in parallel, we see also the average efficiency is rising up from 60%. We have 30% of the units, only 60% efficiency. This is going up also to 70%. So even for products which are, let me say, proved economically worthwhile, it's difficult to be placed on the market because at the very beginning, they cost money. On that topic, we see that regulation is working. Acceptance of heat recovery as an alternative to renewables lead to really a high penetration of heat recovery and efficiency of the units. So looking at the regulation, 70 to 80% heat recovery seem to be an optimized heat recovery here in Germany. We come later to that point again. Same for the fans. Impact, I showed here on the left-hand side, the impact of the fan regulation, which was, let me say, called 2011 and has effective 2030. So we see here the red fans are fans not complying. The yellow fans are fans complying with the limits of 2030, not 2015, and fans complying with the current regulation 2015 limits. So we see a shift from 50% inefficient fans nearly to lower than 10% inefficient fans. That leads to energy saved about 45 gigawatt hours electrical energy per year, and the capacity electrical power saved roughly 2 big power plants saved only with the fan regulation in Europe. So we will provide an update very soon on that to extend this to 2020. Cost. This example shows dramatically what it means to use an efficient fan. These are, let me say, 20 projects here in Germany, which have been where the fans in the air handling unit have been changed, different sizes, different applications, and all projects are calculated with real full costs, investment, and energy savings for the next years. We do not consider rising energy prices and no interest. So what we see, and this is the exciting thing, we have negative CO2 avoiding costs. That would mean that we avoid CO2 and even we gain money. We get money back from the energy supplier, not bad, but we pay less. So on the period of 5 to 15 years, for most of the projects we've shown, we have a negative cost avoiding CO2 effect. That would lead, we have a win-win situation for all, the environment, the customer, and at least we as a producer, because we can sell efficient fans. EPBD, I think most of the things have been addressed also from Mr. Lücke. I will come to, let's say, 2 points, a smart readiness and somehow the smart readiness and the controls aspect. As Mr. Lücke said, smart buildings will be also part of our future solutions. And inside EPBD, it was developed, so let me say, an assessment how we examine smart readiness of a building. I would say it's quite academic approach, but users shall be informed about their smart readiness of their products. And in EPBD, it is the requirement that this smart readiness assessment method shall be developed, but it is voluntary on member states level whether they use it. So the Commission tried to, let me say, influence a bit the ways in the member states, but the way of the member states are different. And to be honest speaking, it's a tough challenge to assess a method, how smart is a system and what will be the outcome. There are currently two methods presented. A simplified online quick scan where users can scan or can give some self-declaration, self-calculations, and then they get a result. We have an expert version where experts come on site and spend roughly about 1 hour or maximum 2 days to assess the smart readiness of a building. I will question on that topic. Is it worthwhile to examine when the building already exists, or is it better to examine when we have a design phase? So that's a challenge what we have. And in future, considering the full electronic data available, there might be an in-use smart building performance where we have the system itself calculates its smartness. This is more or less a top-down approach. A smart readiness expert should assess a system and then lead to a smart readiness indicator, which should be very cheap because nobody is really interested in doing that. So what should be the result of this smart readiness? The proposal of the consultants currently is to have 1/3 of energy savings, 1/3 on user response, and 1/3 of flexibility on energy services. And if we aggregate all that, I would say energy savings is then 1/2 of a third, comfort is 1/4 of a third, convenience, health and well-being, and energy flexibility should be 1/3. So looking at this, we think a smartness of the building, the driver is more health and well-being, comfort, energy savings, and it should be changed to, let me say, a more equal value. That means all of these 7 domains should be calculated equal, and this leads to a global impact on all that. But this is our proposal, how we see smartness of a building, not focused only on somehow energy flexibilities and further on. So this is an aspect how we see these cases. That leads to a situation where we would prefer in the smartness to use a same principle what we did for EPBD calculation, for examples. Manufacturers declare their smart functions on ventilation, cooling, heating, lighting, or whatever, on a product level, functions and interactions, and we have an interaction calculator which leads then to the smart readiness of the building. And such a system can be used also within design phases, also within installation phases, and it can be used at the same, let me say, at the same level when we use EPBD and energy performance certificates calculation. So I think such a system would be more supportive from industry and more accepted, because we do not need individual experts to go on site, which is not in any case cost effective. So then we come to the last part of my assessment, which is the eco-design. We are now in the middle of the revision of the eco-design for ventilation products. We expect the first working documents end of this year. We have now published the technical studies for the current approach. Key is that we improve the regulation based on guidelines already published from Eurovent, EVIA, and the Commission itself. And one of the key issues is ventilation and indoor environment quality, where we need better definitions and better aspects. Everybody agrees that controls, as said before, is an important issue, but we should not only focus on controls on energy aspects. We should also focus on indoor air quality aspects. And it's close to finalization. EVIA developed a ventilation performance assessment tool, which calculates ventilation performance and can also calculate controls factor. That means how efficient is the control that the right airflow is at the right time at the right place. It can be used for eco-design and also for other applications. So it will come up first, I think, we guess, in some small aspect within the eco-design for residential ventilation, where we currently have a very simplified approach on controls impact. That means how demand control can operate a system, and the tool can calculate controls parameters, showing exactly the differences between different strategies and sensoric. For the regulation itself, it should be a reduced way. It must be robust to be used inside the regulation, but for private calculation, it can be used very detailed. Non-residential ventilation, we currently have, on the heat recovery part, 73% of the of minimum requirements on heat recovery, which is, from our understanding, probably a cost-effective way for northern and moderate climates. It's already too high for most non-residential application. If we look for a shopping mall, it is even too high, this minimum requirement. So in general, EVIA would like to open the declaration on considering temperature and operating conditions on a real project, but legal aspects for common markets should be followed. So that is a tough thing. If we look, the reason why we requesting for that here on the right-hand side, you see from Umweltcampus Birkenfeld, Professor Kaup, let me say an optimized heat recovery system which is depending on outdoor temperature, minimum outdoor temperature, and operation times. And what we see is if we have outdoor temperatures, high outdoor temperatures and low operation time, the economically efficient system is approximately 50–55%. And in cold climates with long operation times, it goes up to nearly 80%. So we see that 80% heat recovery system, let's say for southern southern Russia or whatever, might be too high, but it's even too low for northern Russia. So we see we need to consider temperature, but this is a tough regulation in a common market approach. We also have to consider demand control system, because we see that demand controls is an important aspect, coming back to what we see on the eco design and EPBD regulation, where we need demand and smart control system. So we also providing a bonus system for fans, which allowing demand controlled ventilation units on that topic. So that was a small overview about our, let me say, work, day-to-day work in an association, and how we want to guide the regulation to a sufficient way. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Klaus, for your nice presentation. It was extremely interesting for us. And just, yes, let me check. Yeah, we will answer all questions within our question and answer session after all the reports. And we will discuss some very important issues connected with ventilation and air conditioning in Europe and Russia between each other, if you don't mind, yeah? Okay, so now we are moving on to next speaker, Marco Buoni. Marco. He's the president of the European Association of Marco here. Yeah.
Hello, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Could you please make a full screen of your presentation?
Yes, let me check. Do you see full screen?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So,
Great.
thank you very much for inviting me here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Marco Buoni, and I'm the president of the European Association of Refrigeration and Conditioning Heat Pumps Contractors. In particular, we are based in Brussels because, as has been said earlier, in EU, all the legislation, all the important decisions are made centralized in Brussels. But we are an association of 25 national associations. So we are an association of associations. You can see in the map the countries that are part of our association, from 21 countries, from Europe and beyond. So we have most EU countries, and also Turkey, Norway, Great Britain, Germany, France, Spain, etc. We have in our members. We represent the technicians, the installers, the persons that do the installation, design of the systems. We can see that are all the people that maintain, repair our systems. Next slide will be how we are structured. I am the president of this association, and we have a board, which are from Austria, Poland, UK, Sweden. We are divided in 4 working groups, which means working groups about refrigerants. And my presentation will be about the gas regulation and the refrigerants. We have seen in the last 14 years a big change in refrigerant.
Dear Marco, I'm sorry for disturbing you. Our attendees is writing to us that it's not full screen now. Could you please restart? Yeah. Yes.
It's good now?
Yeah, and now it's perfect.
Okay, sorry for that.
Thank you.
No problem. So Working group refrigerants means that we talk about the latest refrigerants, the latest natural refrigerants, what will be the future of refrigerants, and also how to handle that. We need competence, we need training, we need certification for handling this. So this is an important part of our job at the moment. Another part is sustainable innovation. Sustainable innovation, we look to energy efficiency, renewable energy linked to air conditioning, heat pumps, as been said earlier, are renewable energy and is part of our systems, of an air conditioning system. APBD, again, the buildings, eco-design has been talked. Human capital working group is important for us as well. We need to build the competence. People need to handle the system correctly. It's not only the installation, which is important, but also the maintenance of the system to keep the right efficiency, which was designed when we installed the system. And there are many standards, many projects for upskilling our technicians. And of course, legislation. The standards are so important, and we are involved in all the standards for refrigeration and air conditioning, in particular all the product standards, the EN 378 for safety with refrigerants and refrigeration systems, and also competence. We do information, we share information, we share knowledge. We have an app as well, you can see on my left, the app we got, which is translated in 16 languages. We have many bulletins. For example, we issued a bulletin about air conditioning system and COVID-19, how to do the sanitation of the systems, how to proper manage the filters, how to make our systems a solution, not a problem, as my colleague from Riva said earlier, because we are a part of the solution. The ventilation is part of the solution. Change frequently with fresh air is part of the solution. And also we have many bulletins about the F-gas regulation. So, next slide. We have MOUs with many important bodies like UNEP, ISHRE. We work with the European Commission, with EPE, we helped to establish an African association of associations, which has been started last week. The constitution was last week. 29 associations for Africa are organized as we are, so together in a federation of associations, and we help them to start. We work with IIR, the International Institute of Refrigeration, and many other associations. We work with United Nations, in particular in the COP, so the Climate Change Conference, and in the MOP, the conference that will worldwide phase down the refrigerants which are global warming refrigerants, like HFCs, even the traditional refrigerant. Even in Russia, will be phased down HFC in the future. So we need alternative refrigerants. And for this reason, we have an F-gas regulation review coming. And Daria is very involved with the F-gas review. What has been said? The F-gas review started this year, and we had a roadmap which has been driven by the European Commission, the climate action part of the European Commissions. They want an alignment with the Protocol of Montreal, the Kigali Amendments, to change refrigerants globally in the same way. Then we want to further reduce high global potential refrigerants, like 404, 507, even the high European refrigerants needs to be decreased. And we want to reduce even more the quotas of refrigerants. And we want to to fight the illegal trade. And we want to include training for alternative refrigerants, which have, of course, other issues, not environment issues, but safety issues. Propane, for example, as a refrigerant, is flammable. So we need to be very careful in handling in air conditioning system where you do installation of systems. For example, split system, when you have a proper installation of system between two parts. So now we are doing a consultation for the next 14 weeks. AREA is part of this consultation. We are going to Brussels to speak with the European Commission for the consultation. Will be a stakeholder workshop in the coming months. And also we will have an evaluation and impact assessment. And the proposal revision will be in 2021 and at the end of 2021, probably at the beginning of 2022. So what AREA wants from a new F-gas regulation? European Commission received 75 feedbacks, contribution from all stakeholders, all association, new association, or not only you, even from Japan, where some contribution and some feedbacks. It's so important because Europe is the first, is the leading continent in reducing global greenhouse gases. You said that. And our air conditioning system is part of it. Air conditioning, refrigeration, and heat pump system is responsible for 20% of energy consumption. So it's so important. We need to be part of the system. So we want to increase training, mandatory certification also for alternative refrigerant. We want a mutual recognition, harmonized recognition also for alternative refrigerant in Europe. So, for example, to have all the same length for a certification, not every country will have different length for the certification. Brexit is a problem, of course. For example, we would like also mutual recognition with Great Britain to remain, even if we have Great Britain leaving. Okay, illegal trade. You have to think about. There is so much refrigerant illegally imported in Europe, which is about 1/3 of the refrigerant coming to Europe is illegal, which is incredible, which is completely changing the fate of the regulation, is it completely changing the scope of our regulation. So we need to tackle illegal trade of refrigerant, illegal import of refrigerant. And also to include alternative refrigerant. We said flammable refrigerant like propane, hydrocarbons, ammonia, CO2 should be included in the regulation because we need to have proper standards, proper systems with the same standards. Phase down. We should include not only stationary system like air conditioning stationary, but also maritime ship should be included. And we should also include the energy efficiency, not only phase down related to the global impact of the refrigerant itself, but how the energy efficiency of the systems is affected by changing the refrigerants. So if we change the refrigerant and the efficiency is going down, we should not change the refrigerant. We should look to the energy efficiency as a global, like the TEWI, the total equivalent warming impact of the system. Next slide, competence. This is an important topic for us because only with competence we are sure that our systems are working well. We have 3 projects, and we have a project free of charge for everyone to study. We have already in 19 languages translated this project, which is called Real Alternatives. Also, Russian language is available, and you can use it from a website you can see, and it's also a certification using alternative refrigerants. We give free of charge, as I said, 13 languages, sorry, 19 languages now, has been translated more, 6 and more languages since, 9 modules, 1 specific of safety, and we do training and certification. Already in Spain, it's compulsory to have certification for alternative refrigerant, and also in Netherlands. More countries are to come. For example, Estonia is going to be also in Estonia, compulsory to have certification to use propane, CO2, or ammonia. We do train the trainers events in all the countries that are part of our job or program. And you can see on the left, the certificate you can see on the left is the certificate that we issue. and is a common global certificate available in all the 19 countries that are joining. You can download and use the material from realalternatives4life.eu. As I told you, it's free of charge, but if you want to have a certificate, you have to go to a proper qualified training center, because it's a practical training you can do only in qualified training center. For example, Armenia, you saw it in the map earlier, Armenia is part of our system, our consortium. So, for example, you can go to Armenia to have already training and certification using an alternative refrigerant system. We'll be glad to have also Russia, a Russian training center inside our consortium. So to have also inside Russia, maybe in Moscow, training and certification qualified. Another project is a refrigerant driving license, global United Nations approved driving license. So all the world can have a common competence for every kind of refrigerant, not just alternative refrigerants, which, as I said to you earlier, is safety issues, but for all kinds of refrigerant, even for old refrigerants, even for HFCs, for all kinds of refrigerant to have a common qualification. Last project we are using, we are following, we are promoting is an area universal training kit, which means that we give an assessment test, we give venue requirements, we give a minimum qualification for the teachers, the guide, we suggest the equipment that should be needed for the training centers, and we give books. And this is a United Nations project as well. So, all what I told you is already available in Armenia. We did training in the past for Belarus, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and we proposed to them tools and training manuals. So my conclusion is we need to change for the good of our sectors, for improving systems, energy efficiency, environment. We need to reduce the consumption. We need to increase the comfort. Okay, we should also see in these difficult times about ventilation. We should see about health, about COVID-19. And so we need to do, in our opinion, more training, look to intelligent trade on refrigerants, look to energy efficiency, to the safety side. We should decrease the quotas and ban the high global warming potential refrigerants in certain systems like ships or other systems that are not included at the moment. Thank you so much, and we think that stronger we are together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Marco, for your presentation and such energetic speech. It was really perfect. Thank you so much. And I was surprised that you have your education courses in such number of languages. It's really perfect. Yeah,
yes.
It's great, even in Russian. Yes. It's great. Thank you. It was interesting to listen to you. And now we are moving to our question and answer sessions. Just let me check. So we should start at first with questions addressed to our previous speakers. And I see some questions addressed to Mr. Litvinchuk, Georgi Litvinchuk. So we see the first question still linked to the refrigeration issue and hydrocarbon. Is the legal mentoring that is being discussed at political level? So could you share your opinion?
Насколько я знаю, место и слава.
As we know that such questions were not discussed on the state level, and thanks God for it, because in this case, business is free. Yes, we're moving on to the next question. Growth of gas condensing boilers from how many percent?
Смотрите, по 2020 году еще понятных цифр нет. В 2019 году было продано 13,050 конденсационных котлов.
13,050 condensing boilers were sold in 2019, if we're speaking about concrete pipes.
За год до этого 13 160. Это, видите, там говорит практически миллион.
And in 2018, such condensing boilers were sold.
В 2018 году было 13 160, в 2019 13 050. То есть на 110 штук сократилось.
160. So we see that the number decreased by 160 items.
Ну, то есть
Not so
сократилось
much.
на 1%.
Not so much, just a decrease of 1%. We mark in this segment.
В 2017 году продажа была 11 700.
In 2017, sales of condensing boilers in quantitative terms accounted to 11,000 and 700 items.
Я думаю, вы прекрасно понимаете, при том, что российский рынок котлов это больше, чем 1 300 000 в год, это очень маленькие цифры.
I think that you perfectly understand that when the Russian market is around 1 million of condensing boilers, and compared with these figures, these figures are very little.
Причина просто в том, что если мы возьмем традиционный котел с достаточно высоким КПД, возьмем стоимость топлива, которое, допустим, мы тратим за 10 лет, который он служит, и возьмем конденсационный котел и стоимость топлива, которое он потратит за 10 лет, мы получим здесь, собственно, как бы отрицательный экономический эффект в российских рынках.
The reason for this is that if we take the traditional boiler with the medium productivity and energy efficiency, we will see that there is a negative figures in consumption. Yes, and we are moving on to the next question. What about steel radiator, designer radiator in steel and stainless steel markets?
Ну, то есть я уже говорил про стальные панельные радиаторы. Этот рынок растет. Причина роста в том, что стоимость стального панельного радиатора, если мы берем именно как стоимость 1 киловатта тепла, она ниже, чем стоимость алюминиевых и биметаллических радиаторов. Ну, то есть девелоперу выгоднее поставить стальные панели.
As I already mentioned, this market of stainless steel radiators is growing, and the main reason for this, if we take the cost of such radiator with 1 kilowatt,
В пересчете на 1 киловатт тепла он получается дешевле.
It is much cheaper.
Плюс еще один момент, то есть это традиции проектирования зданий. То есть в Советском Союзе и в России до последнего времени доминировала система, когда разводка системы отопления в здании осуществлялась с помощью большого количества стояков и малого количества горизонтальных участков.
And we also have had the tendency in the Soviet Union, in Russia,
Большое количество вертикальных участков и малое количество горизонтальных.
when constructing buildings, it was appropriate to use a lot of horizontal and less vertical.
То есть при этом доминировало боковое подключение радиатора.
So the side installation of the radiators dominated in this process of construction.
В последнее время получило большое распространение так называемая лучевая разводка. То есть когда маленькое количество вертикальных стояков и на этаже разводка идет горизонтально. При этом нижнее подключение прибора.
Nowadays, it is more appropriate to use a few vertical constructions in design and buildings.
Да, то есть вертикальный стояк в подъезде всего один, а дальше идет горизонтальная разводка по квартире.
And then horizontal distribution is used for transforming this heating into LEDs.
При этом приборы подключаются в основном нижняя подводка прибора.
Devices are usually functioning with the help of low distribution of water.
Соответственно, в такой ситуации выгоднее использовать стальной панельный радиатор, потому что его цена не зависит от того, как к нему подводится вода, снизу, сбоку.
So in this situation, it is more advantageous to use a stainless steel radiator because it doesn't matter from what side the water is transformed and installed to its functioning.
То есть на самом деле этот рынок у нас последние все годы растет именно по этой причине.
So in fact, this is one of the main reasons why this stainless steel panel radiators market is growing.
И такой рост этого рынка, он привлек достаточно большие инвестиции, и сейчас в России построено большое количество новых заводов по выпуску стальных панелей.
And such growth of market attracted a large number of investments in this segment, and we have quite a large number of enterprises and factories constructed especially for producing such kinds of equipment all over Russia.
По этой причине объем импорта по данной позиции, я думаю, будет сокращаться.
And I think that this is the reason for decreasing of import volume into Russia.
То есть суммарная мощность тех заводов, которые уже построены, она где-то на 20-25% перекрывает потребность рынка.
So the summary productivity of these Russian factories and enterprises covers around 25% of needs of the Russian buyers.
То, что касается стальных радиаторов, трубчатых стальных и дизайн радиаторов, то это очень маленький сегмент на российском рынке.
If we speak about steel radiators and design radiators, this segment is extremely little in Russia.
То есть это менее 1% рынка, они достаточно дорогие, и это исключительно какой-то элитный бизнес.
It accounted only up to 1% of the whole market, and they are expensive enough, and so they are usually used only for some kinds of very expensive housing in Russia.
Следующий вопрос был по поводу эффективности систем кондиционирования и вентиляции.
So the next question we have is concerning the energy efficiency of ventilation and air conditioning systems in Russia.
На самом деле этот вопрос не является каким-то, скажем так, необыкновенно актуальным для России. Я объясню почему.
Frankly speaking, this question is not extremely actual and current in Russia.
С одной стороны, в России работает достаточно много бытовых кондиционеров. Россия – это самый крупный рынок в Европе по продаже сплит-систем. Это больше 2 миллионов кондиционеров.
On the one side, Russia is one of the largest markets of selling split systems. It covers around 2 million items in a year.
При этом общий парк кондиционеров превышает 20 миллионов.
And the general number of all conditioners is above 20 million items.
При этом очень важным является срок эксплуатации кондиционера в течение года.
And it is very important to take into account the length of life of the air conditioning within a year.
Ну, к примеру, в Москве бытовая сплит-система работает в среднем 400 часов.
For example, a split system in Moscow works around 400 hours in a year only.
На юге России, Волгоград, Ростов, это где-то 1200 часов.
But in Volgograd and other southern regions of Russia, this feature is much bigger and constituent 1,200 hours in a year.
И только на узкой полоске Черноморского побережья кондиционер может работать на 5-6 месяцев в году.
And only in our Russian regions, which are situated next to the Black Sea, such split systems may function over 5-6 months a year.
Но в таком климате у нас живет меньше миллиона человек, а большая часть кондиционеров установлены так, где они работают от 400 где-то до 700 часов.
But less than 1 million people live in these regions situated next to the Black Sea, and most part of our people who use air conditioners are living in Moscow, where the length of life of such split systems constitutes 400 hours a year.
Несколько лет назад я посчитал, сколько электроэнергии потребляют все кондиционеры, которые находятся в России и за.
A few years ago, I counted how much electricity our air conditioners take for functioning.
Оказалось, что это 3 дня работы своей Шушинской ТЭЦ, которая находится в Сибири.
It turns out that it constitutes around 3 days of work of our Siberian Sino-Shushinskaya gas.
Сейчас парк кондиционеров увеличился, но пусть это будет 4 дня.
Now the number of air conditioners has increased, and now it may be around 4 days of functioning.
Если мы заменим все кондиционеры на самые современные инвертора, то экономия будет равна 1 дню работы.
If we will replace all old items with new ones, we will save around 1 day of function.
Ну, то есть при максимальных капиталовложениях мы получим очень небольшую экономию в масштабах страны.
It means that if we will invest a lot, but we will have not so much economy on the scale for all country in this segment.
То, что касается вентиляции, здесь экономия она более весомая.
Speaking about the ventilation, here our savings will be more noticeable.
На самом деле эффективность системы вентиляции в России растет, потому что если, к примеру, там какое-то оборудование целиком зачастую меняют, то вент-установка, которая установлена в вент-камере, ее иногда физически тяжело поменять целиком.
Energy efficiency of ventilation systems is increasing in Russia, and you should know that if some part of this ventilation system is broken and you need to change it with a new one, it's quite difficult to replace only this part, so it stimulates better quality.
Поэтому многие вент-установки их реконструируют, то есть меняют теплообменники.
So a lot of companies just reconstruct and renovate of these ventilation systems. For example, they exchange heat exchangers, ventilator groups, ducts, and also change automatic systems.
То есть практически все вентиляторы в современных вент-установках и при реконструкции вент-установок либо идут с частотным регулятором, либо это так называемый
So in fact, all our ventilation equipment in Russia is usually manufactured with a special years ventilators. EEC ventilators.
Соответственно, по вентиляции растет эффективность как старых систем за счет реконструкции, так, собственно, новые системы вполне себе на уровне.
Such reconstruction and renovation of old systems helps to increase efficiency of ventilation systems, so it is growing.
Но главный ресурс именно повышения эффективности существующих систем – это, скажем так, некая работа на уровне автоматики.
The main resource of increasing the efficiency of existing systems is something like automation systems.
То есть многие системы в процессе их сдачи 10-15 лет назад были, скажем так, неквалифицированные отрегулирования.
So it means that 10 years ago, or maybe a little bit less, all the systems, ventilation systems, which were produced at that time, they had not very good quality of regulation in automation systems.
Тут было две проблемы. Первая – это возможности системы автоматики.
There were two problems. The first one is the opportunities or possibilities of automation systems.
То есть за последние 10-15 лет они выросли просто в геометрической прогрессии.
Such possibilities increased dramatically over the last 15 years.
При этом сама стоимость автоматики снизилась 5-10 раз.
And the cost for automation systems has decreased in a few times.
И, соответственно, второй момент отсутствия, ну, точнее, малое количество грамотных специалистов. То есть сейчас осталось все-таки больше.
And the second problem which took place at that time is a lack of good specialists, installers, but now we have more specialists in this sphere nowadays.
То есть в России проблема эффективности вентиляционного оборудования, ну и вообще всей системы вентиляции кондиционирования, это зачастую не проблема эффективности каких-то конкретных агрегатов, а проблема эффективности всей системы. То есть вся система, она не всегда была просто грамотно построена и грамотно отрегулирована.
So the efficiency of the ventilation systems in Russia is mainly caused by not the efficiency of some parts of such ventilation systems, but of the system functioning on the whole.
То, что касается именно холодильного оборудования, то есть это, я так понимаю, вопрос был по поводу различных витрин, систем охлаждения магазинов.
Speaking about refrigerant equipment, as I understand, this question is closely connected with the equipment which is used in trade centers, retailers, networks, and etc.
Тут также проблема не столько в том, чтобы поменять одно эффективное оборудование на другое, более эффективное. Надо понимать, какое наследство осталось от 90-х годов и от советских времен. У нас во многих магазинах по-прежнему работают моноблочные витрины, то есть которые охлаждают пространство внутри себя и выбрасывают тепло внутрь магазина.
You should know that in Russia, in many trade centers and retailers networks, there are still monoblock refrigerant equipment, which is widely spread in Russia after the Soviet Union.
То есть эти остались еще в достаточно большом количестве витрин, которые холодят внутри себя и выбрасывают тепло внутрь помещений, которые находятся.
So in fact, in Russia, there are still a large number of special refrigeration equipment, which is used in retailers' networks, which makes colder inside this equipment, but then transforms heating into the air.
Ну, это прежде всего то, что я сказал, касается маленьких магазинов.
First of all, it is in small shops.
В современных магазинах, которые сейчас строятся, соответственно, достаточно современная система охлаждения, это централизованный холод, либо там центральный, либо компрессорно-конденсаторный агрегат на улице. То есть такой проблемы в новых зданиях нет. А в старых, собственно, не везде есть деньги на реконструкцию подобной системы. То есть в целом, наверное, не самая высокая эффективность таких систем по стране, она именно связана с наличием неких старых систем, у которых эффективность, в принципе, очень низкая. Но постепенно процесс реконструкции, собственно, идет. И на рынке именно холодильного оборудования здесь ситуация какая? То есть импорт готового оборудования очень маленький. Зато импортируется очень много комплектующих. То есть это компрессора, вентиляторы, насосы, то есть какие-то компоненты для построения подобных систем.
But if we speak about the modern buildings for shops and retailers networks, there are no such problems with refrigeration equipment It is very modern and up to date, and we use few condensing systems for refrigeration as well. So there are no such problems. But if we are speaking about the old shops and small shops left from the Soviet Union, sometimes they don't have enough money to replace their old refrigeration systems with new ones, and they need some investment. They need money to replace this equipment with new one.
Вопрос просто еще в том, что, как я уже сказал, готового оборудования для промышленного выхода импортируется очень много. Готовое оборудование не больше 10%.
And tailor-made equipment is imported in not so much volume. It's around 10% of the market.
Зато много, скажем так, компонентов.
But there are many components imported into Russia from other countries.
Так, тут какой-то вопрос еще был по исследованию.
And now we are moving to other questions. I've read your marketing research reports, very useful information. You've got good and deep level of understanding of the Russian market. We would like to order market research from you. Our attendees would like to have a special market research from Mr. Litvinchuk. And we have another question. What is expected average growth rate for HVAC industry in Russia 2021, residential, commercial, industrial?
Понимаете, тут вопрос я не совсем понял. То, что касается охвата индустрии, это водяное отопление, система кондиционирования, вентиляции. Здесь дело в том, что разные сегменты, они совершенно по-разному, скажем так, себя ведут. То есть одни сегменты падают, другие растут. Говорить о каком-то среднем, но это надо очень точно подбить итоги года, по каждому сегменту разложить на residential, commercial, industrial, да, и в таком разрезе пока, наверное, оценить сложно. То есть дело в том, что нет некой общей тенденции там, на рост или общей тенденции на падение. То есть одни рынки выросли, другие упали. Но в целом, конечно, скажем так, residential скорее, может быть, даже подросло, commercial упало, industrial примерно на прошлогодний уровень. Ну вот это самая такая грубая оценка.
Speaking about the prospects of HVAC markets in Russia for 2021, it's very difficult to predict because, as I've already mentioned, different segments show different dynamics. And we should be very strict with the results of the year. We should take them into account, and only after that we may say the exact perspectives of the Russian heating, ventilation, and air conditioning market. It's difficult to predict anything right now. But as I'd like to say that the domestic...
То, что касается именно частного рынка потребителей, здесь будет прирост небольшой в этих сегментах.
Speaking about the domestic equipment, I suppose that there will be a slight increase in this segment in next year.
Ну, это опять-таки настенные котлы те же самые.
It includes wall-tied boilers, air conditioners.
Все эти рынки, собственно, подросли. То, что касается коммерческого сегмента, он, разумеется, в этом году упал, потому что из-за пандемии были закрыты многие магазины, кинотеатры.
Speaking about the commercial sector, it has decreased this year due to the coronavirus situation, due to the quarantine regime. A lot of shops and cinemas, trade centers, they were closed, so this segment has decreased.
Индустриального сегмента, на самом деле, вся промышленность в России практически продолжала работать в период пандемии. То то, слава богу, властям хватило, скажем так, ума не трогать индустриальный сельскохозяйственный сектор экономики, а ограничительные меры ввести в сферу услуг.
And speaking about the industrial sector, you should know that in Russia, all of our factories and enterprises connected with industrial equipment, they functioned well even within the coronavirus situation, quarantine regime, as our state took care of them and they let them function at this time. So we don't have any decrease in this segment and even increase maybe.
Поэтому то, что касается производственного сектора, здесь некое снижение произошло только там, где шла работа именно на частного клиента, то есть на конечного потребителя. То есть это некие промышленные товары, которые там продаются через обычный магазин. Ну вот, к примеру, просто мой одноклассник, у него бизнес, маленькая фабрика, которая шьет шторы. У них прирост в этом году получился где-то порядка 90%, потому что у них вся продажа шла через интернет-магазин. Люди сидели дома, люди обустраивали свой быт. То есть и на самом деле то, что касается всяких производств, здесь зачастую в этом году получился довольно неожиданный прирост.
There were a slight decrease in industrial sector in those segments which were mostly focused on private companies and mostly sell their products to them. For example, I have one schoolmate who had his own factory for producing curtains. Thanks to the fact that they distributed their products via in the internet, they got even an increase. So you should be very careful when using different sources of promoting your products, and online even gave an increase nowadays.
Тут вопрос еще был по емкости российского рынка настенных газовых котлов. В 2019 году это было порядка 480 тысяч, в этом году мы рынок вырастет на 2-3, может быть, 5%.
There was also a question connected with the tailored gas boilers.
Было 480 тысяч примерно, сейчас рынок вырастет на 20%.
For 100,000 till 800,000 items, and now this market is growing by 2 or 5%. The growth is 2 or 5% of this market.
Так что за вопрос? Second position, new sales.
And we see some questions and requests even connected with preparing a special survey and report market research from Georg Lifinchuk. He's ready to do it, but in private order, not now, of course, for sure. Thank you so much for all your questions and for your answers, Mr. Georg Lifinchuk. And now we would like one common question to all speakers of this online conference, which we would like to discuss the last one. So there was a question. Just let me see. So yeah, what are the latest trends in energy saving and noise reduction for ventilation systems in Europe? So maybe our experts from Europe would like to answer these questions and help. Maybe Mr. Frank or Mr. Klaus?
I didn't get exactly the question. Can you repeat, please?
Yeah, for sure. What are the latest trends in energy saving and noise reduction for ventilation systems? Noise reduction.
Well, it depends on the market. In the market for non-residential, for office building, we clearly see a shift for what we call chilled beam or chilled ceiling, where we avoid to have ventilators and fan coils, and we have what we call high temperature cooling and low temperature heating. This is clearly a trend where we can achieve the best comfort in office space without noise in offices. So this is a clear trend for development, and you can do it with chilled beams or a radiant ceiling. In residential, in terms of, and the advantage, of course, of these installation systems is that you also have very good efficiency in terms of energy savings. In residential, the trend is to go to heat pumps in order to save energy in a residential area, individual housing or collective housing. So it will be more and more of a trend in new buildings and also in retrofitting to have a one system for hot water production, for heating and cooling. So we see clearly a trend in heat pumps market. And I just quoted the report from the International Energy Agency, Future of Cooling, where they speak about a trend of a market with a trend of raise of 15% plus every year. So clearly we see that it's something that is in the air. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Maybe Mr. Klaus, would you like to add something?
I think Klaus already left, and I'm really sorry, but I have to leave too.
So it was the last question for today. Thank you so much for our international live conference. It was an interesting experience for everyone. And we will send all the presentations from our speakers and a special report presentation about the Russian ventilation and air conditioning markets as well from Mr. Georgy Litvinchuk, based on his expert's opinion, and you will be able to read it and look it through. And of course, presentations from our international colleagues as well, if you don't mind.
Can I add something about this point about transition? I think it's also important maintenance, and the regulations that are coming in the future will be more about controlling systems. So it's very important to control system periodically, leak checking the systems. So the future will be more management, remote management, has been said earlier. So it's very important to follow this control periodically. And sorry for my presentation, I just understood that it was not clear the screen. I didn't notice that. Sorry for that. You will receive my presentation, so you can check by email. Everyone can see it afterwards. Thank you for inviting.
Thank you. Thank you so much for participating in our international online conference. Yeah. So we may end it. Thank you. Thank you for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Hope it was interesting.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.